January of 2013. You are in Valdosta, Georgia, and you're walking into the old gymnasium at Lowndes High School. The smell of floor wax, old sweat, the echo of sneakers squeaking on the wood, it's just that chaotic, deafening noise of teenage energy.
It's basically the most mundane setting in the world.
It really is. A place for gym class, for pep rallies, for skipping homeroom.
It's the backdrop of 1,000 normal high school memories. It's supposed to be safe, predictable.
Right. But on the morning of January 11th, that safety just evaporates. It's a little after 10 a.m. There's a gym class happening, kids are running around, and a group of students are sitting on these large rolled-up wrestling mats that are standing vertically against the back wall.
They were just sitting there filling out a survey.
Right. And then amidst all that noise, one of them notices something quiet. Something just wrong.
It was a pair of socks.
Socks, just sticking out of the center of one of these standing mats. Now, because this is high school, the immediate assumption isn't tragedy.
No, of course not.
It's a prank. Someone's playing a joke. Someone dove in there to hide from a teacher, maybe. So a student climbs up the bleachers to get a better vantage point, maybe to grab a hand and pull this person out.
But when they try to pull the prank, the person doesn't budge. They aren't hiding. They are wedged, stuck, and they are completely unresponsive.
That's when the laughter stops. Panic sets in. They knock the heavy mat over, spilling it onto the floor. And what slides out isn't a prank.
No.
It's the body of 17-year-old Kendrick Johnson, a three-sport athlete, a kid with dreams of playing professional football, just gone.
In that moment, the gymnasium, the overturned mat, they'll tell you that is ground zero. From that split second, the timeline of this case fractures into two completely irreconcilable realities.
Yeah, irreconcilable is the perfect word for it. Reality A is the official investigation, which wrapped up incredibly fast and ruled this freak accident.
And reality B is what the family saw, and eventually what the whole world saw. A body that looked violently beaten. A timeline that felt impossible. And a series of forensic discoveries, like missing organs and newspapers stuffed inside a corpse, that sound like the plot of a horror movie, not a police report.
It's a case that has stretched from that gym in 2013 all the way to where we are now in 2026. It's a story about the loss of a child, yes, but it's also about a total catastrophic breakdown of trust.
Absolutely.
How does a healthy 17-year-old athlete die inside a rolled-up piece of foam?
It sounds implausible on the surface. But to understand the accident theory, you have to understand the weird, specific culture of that gym. The initial investigation by the Lowndes County Sheriff and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, the GBI, they concluded the cause of death was positional asphyxia.
Positional asphyxia. That's a clinical term for an absolute nightmare way to die. Can you break that down for us?
Essentially, he got stuck upside down. When you are inverted like that for a long period, gravity pulls your internal organs, your liver, your stomach, your intestines downward.
Which in this case means towards his head.
Exactly. Down means pressing against your diaphragm and your lungs. The weight of your own body prevents you from expanding your chest. You simply cannot take a breath. You suffocate from the inside out.
Okay, that is terrifying. But the big question is, why was he in the mat in the first place? Why would anyone climb into a 6-foot vertical tube?
Well, the investigators' theory was that Kendrick was trying to retrieve a shoe.
A shoe. He dove into a dark hole for a sneaker.
It sounds risky to us, but we have student reports stating this was common practice. Students didn't want to pay locker fees, so they would stash their stuff inside or behind these rolled-up mats.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Kendrick actually shared a pair of Adidas shoes with another student. They'd take turns wearing them. And when they weren't wearing them, they'd toss them into the hollow center of these standing mats.
So the theory is he goes to get the shoes for gym class. He looks down the tube. He sees one shoe way at the bottom.
Right. The theory is the shoe fell too far down. He climbed up the bleachers, dove in headfirst to grab it, thinking he could shimmy back out. But gravity took over. He slipped, his shoulders got wedged in the narrow space, and he was trapped.
Is there actually physical evidence for this shoe diving scenario? Or is it just a guess to explain a dead body found in a weird place?
There is physical evidence. When they found him, his socks were on, but he wasn't wearing shoes. Those were found near his feet as if he'd kicked them off while struggling to get traction.
Oh, I see.
But, and this is the key piece for the state's case, there was another pair of shoes found at the very bottom of the mat beneath his head.
So the shoe he was supposedly diving for was actually down there.
It was. And the GBI medical examiner, Dr. Gaffney Kraft, found no signs of foul play, no fatal blows to the skull, no stab wounds, no defensive wounds on his hands, just the tragic physiological signs of someone dying while upside down.
I have to push back here, though, because I'm looking at the dimensions in the file. Kendrick was 5'10". His shoulders were roughly 19 inches wide. These mats were 6 feet tall. The opening in the center was what?
It's variable, but roughly 14 inches.
14 inches. That is incredibly tight. It's like diving into a pizza box. The idea that a 17-year-old would look at that dark hole and think, yeah, I'll just pop in there with no one around to spot him, it feels like a nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
Is it actually physically possible?
It is physically possible. Oh, they did reenactments, actually. If you exhale, squeeze your shoulders, you can fit. But getting out against gravity, that's the problem. However, that skepticism you're feeling right now, that feeling that this just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That is exactly what the Johnson family felt. They rejected the accident theory immediately.
And this is where the story gets really dark. Because the family didn't just have a feeling, they had a photo.
Right.
The family released a photo of Kendrick taken after he was found. And if you've been on the internet in the last 13 years, you have probably seen it. It's unforgettable. His face looks destroyed. It's swollen to twice its size. It's discolored, almost black and blue. To his parents and to a lot of the public, that didn't look like suffocation. That looked like a brutal beating.
That photo was the catalyst for the entire movement. It turned a local tragedy into a national civil rights story. The family was convinced the state was lying. So in June 2013, they hired their own private pathologist, Dr. William Anderson, for a second autopsy.
And this is where the two realities really diverge. What did Dr. Anderson find?
He completely contradicted the state. He found hemorrhaging on the right side of Kendrick's neck and jaw. He listed the cause of death as blunt force trauma. He explicitly called it unexplained, apparent, non-accidental.
So now we have accident on one death certificate and murder on another. But then Dr. Anderson found something else. The detail that probably shocked people more than anything else in this entire case. The newspaper.
Yes, this is the detail that keeps people up at night. When Dr. Anderson opened the body for the second autopsy, he found that Kendrick's internal organs were gone. Brain, heart, lungs, liver, all of it.
Just gone.
Missing. And in their place, the body cavity had been stuffed with old newspapers.
I remember reading this and just feeling sick. It feels like a desecration. It feels like someone was trying to hide evidence. Let's just get rid of the organs so no one can test them again. How on earth do the authorities explain that?
It looked incredibly suspicious. To the family, this was the smoking gun of a cover-up. The explanation from the funeral home, however, was bureaucratic, though gruesome. The funeral homeowner claimed that when he received the body from the GBI after the first autopsy, the organs had been discarded by the prosector because they were too decomposed to preserve.
Is that standard practice? To throw away a teenager's heart and lungs and fill them with the Sunday paper.
Well, Secretary of State's office actually investigated this specific incident. They found that while it wasn't best practice, usually sawdust or cotton is used to fill the void, it didn't technically violate the specific rules at the time.
So technically legal, but absolutely horrifying.
Exactly. But try telling a grieving mother that the newspaper inside her son is just bad practice. To them, it was absolute proof that someone was messing with their son's body to hide the cause of death.
And if you believe it's murder and you believe the police are covering it up, you start looking for a murderer yourself. This is where the conspiracy theories really started to take shape, right?
Right. The community started looking for a villain. And the focus landed on two brother students at the school, often referred to in the media as the Bell brothers.
Why them? Was it just random?
No, it wasn't random at all. About a year prior to Kendrick's death, he and one of the brothers had gotten into a fistfight on a school bus. It was a known conflict. The family believed this was the motive of revenge. And to add massive amounts of fuel to the fire, the brother's father was an FBI agent.
Which, if you're writing a conspiracy movie, is the perfect antagonist.
Yes.
You have the FBI dad who can pull strings, make evidence disappear, intimidate the local cops. It fits the narrative almost too perfectly.
It really does. FBI dad covers up son's crime. And speaking of disappearing evidence, we have to talk about the surveillance tapes.
Missing hours. This was the other huge headline that made everyone say, okay, something is definitely wrong here.
It was. CNN had an expert analyze the school surveillance footage. They found gaps. Hours of missing time from the gym cameras right around the time Kendrick would have died. The family alleged the tapes were doctored, literally cut to hide the attack.
And then in 2015, a third autopsy, this time by the famous Dr. Michael Baden, also supported the blunt force trauma finding. So now you have two private pathologists saying murder against the state's accident.
Yeah.
You have missing video. You have an FBI connection. It feels like the evidence for murder is overwhelming at this point.
It certainly felt that way to the public. The internet practically prosecuted these kids. There were protests. It was a massive, massive story.
But, and this is the deep dive part of the show, this is where we have to stop the tape. Because as compelling as the conspiracy sounds when you actually read the Department of Justice report, there are some huge glaring holes in the murder theory.
Massive holes. Let's look at the hard facts that tend to get left out of the viral videos. Let's start with the suspects, the Bell brothers.
The internet was convinced they did it.
But the FBI and the Department of Justice investigated this thoroughly. And remember, the DOJ isn't the local sheriff. They aren't part of the good old boy network in Valdosta. They came in specifically to look for a hate crime. They looked at the alibis.
And were the alibis weak?
They were rock solid, airtight. One brother was on a bus traveling to a wrestling tournament in Macon, Georgia.
How do we know that for sure, though?
We're talking trip requests, coach testimony, weigh-in sheets at the tournament. He was physically hours away when Kendrick entered that gym. He couldn't have been there. It is physically impossible.
And the other brother?
He was in a classroom, verified by teacher testimony and school attendance records. He was nowhere near the gym.
That kind of kills the theory right there, doesn't it? If the only suspects weren't even in the room.
It makes it impossible for them to be the perpetrators. And in 2016, the DOJ officially closed their investigation. They stated there was insufficient evidence to prove a crime occurred, let alone a hate crime.
Okay, so the brothers have alibis. But what about the photo? The beaten face. We can't unsee that. I can't look at that photo and say, oh yeah, accident.
This is where forensic context is crucial, and it's something the general public usually doesn't know. The photo the family released, the one that looks so horrific, was taken after the autopsy.
After? Why does that matter?
Because during an autopsy, an incision is made from behind one ear over the top of the head to the other ear. The scalp is peeled forward to examine the skull. Then it's put back. That process, combined with the decomposition, severely distorts the facial features. It makes the face look swollen and completely misshapen.
But were there photos taken before that? Before the medical examiner touched him?
Yes. There were photos taken immediately upon discovery at the gym.
And what did those look like?
They showed much, much less distortion. The swelling that was present was consistent with avidity. Remember, he was upside down for over 20 hours. All the blood in his body pooled in his head. That creates a dark, bruised, purple appearance that looks exactly like trauma to an untrained eye, but it isn't necessarily from a beating.
So the beating might have actually just been gravity and biology.
Precisely. The private pathologists interpreted that blood settling as blunt force trauma. The state interpreted it as positional changes.
Okay. Alibis are solid. The face can be explained by science. What about the missing video? You can't just lose hours of footage in a murder investigation.
The technical explanation is far less sinister than editing. The camera system at the school was motion activated. It wasn't recording 24/7. It only recorded when pixels changed. Basically, when something moved in the frame.
It's like a Ring doorbell.
Exactly like that. The gaps were periods where nothing was moving in the gym. If the lights were off or no one was walking by, it simply stopped recording. Plus, the timestamps between different cameras were out of sync, which created the illusion of a timeline jump. The FBI analysis found absolutely no evidence of intentional editing.
So no one hit delete. It just slept.
That is the finding of the technical analysis, yes.
This is the real tragedy of this case. You have these explanations, motion sensors, lividity wrestling tournaments that are rational and evidence-based, but they don't feel satisfying when you're looking at a dead child.
And that's why the story didn't end in 2016. Here we are in 2026, 13 years later, and the Johnson family is still fighting. They have never accepted the accident theory.